about Destiny, how I can't quit you no matter what. Beta comes out, and I get pulled right back into the game. No matter how many details about the sequel have come out, good and bad, I will be there day one to play this motherfucker. For those of you who haven't paid attention, you know that I haven't really talked about the sequel almost since Mass Effect Andromeda came out. I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes, but with the release of the beta, it's time to jump back on the Destiny wagon and get my shit going again. But even though I haven't posted any Destiny videos in a few months, I at least continue to tell the YouTuber to go fuck himself. Now, first things first, this is not a review in any way about the beta or the content. I'll do that once the beta ends, because obviously, it's only been one fucking day. I can only play so much content in one day and provide some opinion and predictions in this motherfucker, but I'm gonna wait at least until the beta's over, then I'll do some extra videos on that shit. And yes, I can be an asshole and stretch out as much Destiny 2 content as possible up until the launch, like some of the other asshole channels are gonna do. You know, you probably noticed that I took a nice long break for the game. I played Mass Effect Andromeda, another fucking game with issues up the ass. Meanwhile, details and info was coming out in droves about the sequel, and I really didn't address any of that shit up to this point. After all, I'm not one of these channels that needs to make a fucking video every time Bungie farts and wants to post about speculation and bullshit. Get the fuck out of here, man. I waited until the beta, and during the time the game was announced to right now, there's been quite a bit of info that Bungie has released. How the story works, the new locations, changes to the clans, among the gameplay changes to like the new subclasses, the set perks on the guns instead of randomizing them. Obviously, I don't have time, nor would I make a video on all of that shit because I like to focus on the important stuff. Like the main argument right now, is Destiny 2 a sequel or is it a copy and paste job? The game itself is already polarizing to begin with. We already know that. Some people love the game and will play it for thousands of hours. Others will hate the game without even touching the motherfucker, no matter what. Then you have people like me who love playing the game because of how much hate you can put into this shit. But one of the things that seems to unify both sides of the Destiny fanbase is the game doesn't look much different than the first one. It looks and feels the same, well, with the exception of the PC version, which looks stunning, by the way. Have you guys seen that shit? 60 frame rates per second? I don't give a fuck what science says about the human eye not being able to see the difference, but you can clearly see the fucking difference with 30 frame rates per second versus 60 frame rates per second. Holy fuck, just go watch the PC version of the game because it is utterly fucking stunning. I know they say they can't do that on consoles, but motherfucker, I'd rather have 60 frames per second than 4K HDR any fucking day of the week, man. That is such bullshit, man. But besides that, the argument is right now that Destiny's gameplay looks the same. The fighting looks the same, the enemies look the same, the environments look the same, the controls look the same. And my puzzled devil's advocate question is, why shouldn't it? No, really, this is the most brain-fuckingly stupid argument against the game that I have seen. Oh, it's a copy and paste. This game is identical. They didn't change it. It's like people fucking forgot how video games work or some shit. You know, there's no question that there are things that concern me about this game, which I'll present as well. But this argument that the game looks identical has to be the most illogical shit that I have ever seen. What the fuck do you want? A completely new game? Do Call of Duty, Battlefield, Assassin's Creed, or Forza look completely different in a sequel? No. They maintain their identity throughout their next games. Were people expecting Ultra HD 4K lifelike model replicas of the Cabal or some shit? Do you expect the game to rival the graphics of, say, Final Fantasy or The Witcher? Obviously, the 60 frame rate per second on console certainly would have been nice like the PC version, but what the fuck were people expecting? This game wasn't going to go over a complete overhaul design. They weren't going to change the engine, recreate character models from scratch when they just did that a few years ago. This wasn't going to be ground up development like the original game or any original game in a franchise. It was going to be an improvement on what they already had. They were going to add shit. They were going to improve shit. They were going to remove stupid shit. This wasn't going to be a grand overhaul of a financially successful game. Critical reception, of course, was average when it launched. That's one thing. But the money Destiny pulls in is fucking staggering. So I'm not quite sure what people were expecting out of the sequel, unless they were looking for some of the most lifelike graphics in the game or a complete gameplay change, which, to be honest, that's the strong suit of Destiny. It just seems unrealistic that people are saying this is a copy and paste and you shouldn't buy this motherfucker. One of the key things that people seem to forget when they make the copy and paste argument is the number of changes Destiny already went through during its first 3 years. I mean, who played during launch? Do you guys remember how fucking shitty the game was at launch? Do you remember how terrible the loot system was? Exploring, boring strikes, limited weekly content other than fucking grinding and farming? But during its lifespan, more shit was added. Changes to the game, changes to the economy, quality of life were improved. Fucking A, man, Destiny 1 itself morphed from a lackluster piece of shit with nothing to do into a robust piece of shit with things to do. But at least he got more rewards than that motherfucker. You know, Vanilla Destiny started with 20 missions they called a story. It didn't actually have a fucking story, but it had 6 strike missions, well 5 if you bought the original Xbox underpowered X1, X Uno console, whatever the fuck. Oh man, that console exclusivity shit. Anyway, it had 1 raid, 1 social space, 1 loot cave that they eventually closed down, and the Crucible. They tried that Queen's Wrath event right after launch, which sucked so bad that they had to change it midway through. The Iron Banner, which the first version sucked so bad that it needed to take a month off so they could fucking fix it. The raid was the best part of the game, and that launched a week after the release of the game, and it was by far the best thing they could have created. But the rewards were shit. The guns in the Crucible were wholly unbalanced. The economy was fucked up. Countless useless shit in the game and other characters that were pointless, like factions and Tess Everest. Xur was too expensive, and there was almost no way to get strange coins early in the weeks to afford this shit. It was a fucking hot mess of an incomplete game. But starting with House of Wolves, the game really changed its fortunes. They allowed older weapons and older gear to ascend to higher levels. Nightfalls and strikes became more rewarding. Crucible had a purpose with Trials of Osiris and better rewards. The Taken King really improved the game and added its first true storyline to the game and a completely new cutscene, fucking Bungie. It added new areas that were shown in the reveal trailer in the Dreadnought already. So basically they recycle enemies into the Taken to add more shit without really adding more shit. So essentially the Taken King was an improvement, but don't get me wrong, it wasn't full ground up fucking development. Then the Taken Spring added more improvements to the game, followed by Rise of Iron, and then concluded with the Age of Triumphs. That doesn't include all the patches, the hot fixes, the changes added to the game in between the content releases. Destiny isn't perfect, far from perfect, judging by the Crucible right now. But it unquestionably changed. That is undeniable. The game is a vastly improved product from the completely incomplete project they sold us 3 years ago. Yes, we had to pay for these changes. It took DLC packs to make those improvements, but ultimately they finally did improve the game. To say this game is a copy and paste completely ignores the fact that the game has improved over its 3 years of existence. It ignores the changes made because Bungie actually did improve the game for those of us who enjoyed the mental abuse of playing this shit the whole time. So make no mistake about this. Destiny 2 is not a copy and paste of the original product. It's more of a copy and paste from the end product that Destiny turned into. I'm sure it's going to mirror the final product that Destiny morphed into, but in far and away, it has changed over its lifespan and improved drastically since its launch. Now, as for the upcoming changes, I will say there are some things that I do like, and certainly some things that I don't. I like the idea of better clan support, the exploration or adventures, whatever the fuck they're going to call these things. I like that Grimoire cards and points are being removed because the game is going to tell us a story and background as opposed to making us read it on a fucking website. Hopefully they get that part right, but at least they don't send us to a goddamn website for the backstory of Destiny. I like that we have new locations and that they didn't just recycle the 4 old ones, although I wish it was more than just the 4 fucking locations that we got in Vanilla Destiny. I mean, fuckers, at least give us 5 or something this time. You know, we finished with 5 or 6 locations depending on your view of the Plaguelands. So at least let us get that. At least let us get 6 locations or something like that. I like that we have new subclasses to replace the 3 trouble ones. Because let's be honest here for a second, the Sunsinger was essentially used as an asshole class. In Trials, you had to worry about that motherfucker self-reviving. In Raids, it was the one class that was used to avoid all the mechanics and allowed players to solo the raids. Bubble Titans was always the go-to raid class for Titans, and you rarely used the other 2 subclasses during the main boss fights. It never made sense to use the other 2 classes over the bubble protection or the damage buff. Blade Dancer gave the most fucking problems in the Crucible when it came to balance. So the Arc Strider is essentially a new form of a Blade Dancer. It's going to keep some of those abilities from the Blade Dancer. But essentially, it looks like it's going to give PvE more options for a hunter. Now, of course, there are changes that I don't like, such as the 4 versus 4 Crucible now for every fucking mode, because we know this is to accommodate fucking competitive gaming. Notice I don't call that shit esports because that shit is not a sport. But you know, Bungie has to serve up their asshole to competitive gaming because they want to make money off of that shit too. Anyways, there is nothing wrong with the 6v6 modes, but it's condensed to something that doesn't make any fucking sense as they try to recapture their Halo glory days. Now, the majority of changes that they're making that we already see in the beta, I'm going to wait until the final product to determine that. When I mean the final product, I mean the launch product. Things like legendary guns having set perks now instead of random perks. You know, I'm split on this one. Because on one hand, I hated losing gunfights to people just because they had the same gun as me, but it had a better perk. Instead of winning based on skill, you beat me basically because your gun had a better perk than me. Sure, you can kill me if you have a better shot than me. Cool, I have no problem with that. But this bullshit that the bottom half of the magazine does more damage, so you can shoot me with more body shots and kill me while I'm shooting you in the fucking face and not winning a gunfight, that was bullshit. So removing that is something that I like. But now, it means that all guns are going to feel the same, and they're going to need a much wider variety of guns to make up for that stagnant perk. You know, there's always hope of landing that perfect gun with the perfect scope and the perfect perks, and maybe finding the same weapon with a better roll. That chase will now be gone, and the chase for the perfect gun was something that people enjoyed. So we'll see how that goes when the game releases. I'm not going to judge that as of right now. The gun setup themselves with kinetic, power, energy will also be new. We'll see how that plays out in the long run as well. Changes to subclasses is another point in contention. I'll wait to see how these set of perks on the classes work, as opposed to the RPG-ish elements of where you got to choose how you want your character to perform. Obviously, there were some subclasses in Destiny 1 that had a very obvious way of setting them up for the Crucible or for co-op, but at least the option for variety was there. Again, I'll hold off until I see all the subclasses and their set perks. The final thing that I'll hold off until I see the actual game is the storyline. Now, one of the very first videos I did on the Destiny sequel was whether this story feels like a sequel or it feels like a DLC expansion. To be honest, it still seems like an expansion pack with just a more focus on the Cabal and shit like that, but that could change with the release of the game. It could turn out to be a comprehensive story instead of a smaller storyline that doesn't give us a full narrative. But again, you have to wait until we actually see the full product and play the entire thing as opposed to just one mission. So I'll hold off judgment on these things until I see the full release. All these changes, though, are things that really concern me. As long as the gameplay continues to be on point, which it feels like, I'll give Bungie credit for that. Destiny has always felt like an amazing mechanical game. They really nailed that part of it, but it's all the other things that have issues when it comes to this game. With this beta, they have a chance to listen to the community and hopefully make some changes ahead of time for things that people don't like, or for things that people do like that they missed from Destiny 1. I don't think the game is going to have a massive change compared to what we see in the beta, but you never know. The community might find something they absolutely hate, and Bungie will end up having to change that shit. But for now, I'll continue to enjoy the beta. I'll continue to bust my ass playing this shit. And for those of you who have me on your friends list or want to add me on your friends list, feel free. I'll be playing the shit all week. I'll be knocking the shit out as much as I possibly can. And then obviously when the game comes out, we'll talk about the clan support, raids, and all that other good stuff. Because obviously, the more people that can play with me, the better. The more people we get into raids, cool. But we'll see what happens once the game actually releases down the road. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.